And welcome. We are the Owatonna School Board. This is Tuesday. It's the 28th of September, 5:30. I'm going to call this meeting to order. Eric, our attendance tonight?
We're missing Lori and Nikki tonight.
Hopefully we will hear from Nikki, or here comes Nikki.
Oh. Correction, we are only missing Lori.
All right. Thank you. As Nikki makes her way forward, if all of you would please rise, and we'll give Nikki just a second to find her place. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
First item tonight would be to approve the agenda as presented. We'll entertain a motion.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor with an aye? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next up was Mission Moment. I'm going to turn things over to Mr. Elstad.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. As we do at our monthly meetings, we honor staff and students, and this month we are honoring our human resources team. So I would like to have Mallory Herman, HR Specialist, Cheryl Summer, HR Specialist, and Chris Pika, our Director of Human Resources, please stand. Tonight we're looking at or honoring our strategic direction of high-quality teaching and learning. And as I look at the feats of the past year for this team, as you can tell, they're a smaller team, but they certainly are committed to their work. Our HR team does things like employee-related programs, employee relations issues, screening and interviewing, employment records, verification, personnel-related correspondence and reports, general support to employees, licensing and certification, which I would add Minnesota is a feat in all of itself. And then obviously substitutes and coverage, and I could pause there for a moment. During the past year, as you know, substitutes were in high demand, but we had a very low inventory because of coronavirus and the lack of subs that were willing to substitute. And this team was nothing less than amazing in their efforts to help us with that. We also welcomed nearly 70 new staff to our district, both licensed and support staff. And of course, this team greets them and offers them their first orientation to the district. And most recently, Chris was appointed COVID coordinator because we had a long-term absence from Amy Jo Havelka, who was our COVID coordinator last year. This team has gone above and beyond their normal work hours and duties for COVID contact tracing, answering questions, and returning to school. And it wasn't a short length of time. It was now going on 19 months of having to do that. They're also willing to go to other buildings and cover duties when we were short in other buildings, and also providing phone coverage and things like that in school offices. They truly are committed to high quality teaching and learning and making sure that we get the best and brightest in our school district. And for that, I'm sincerely appreciative and wanted to lift them up this month as part of our mission moment. Thank you so much.
We'll move on. Thank you. We'll move on. Item 5 tonight is public forum, and this is a good opportunity to remind everyone of the importance of meeting decorum. We do not allow slander, defamation, profanity, personal attacks, or revelations of private data. And as chair, I respectfully request that the public refrain from interrupting speakers during public forum. You'll be provided 3 minutes. You'll be asked to state your name and the subject you wish to address. I know that there were a few people that made their way in just as Sarah came down. Are there any last-minute people that came in that have a card and would like to speak? Okay, hearing none. With that, I'll introduce our first, Marlene Nelson. Ms. Nelson, come on down, please.
Marlene Nelson, 1726 Mosier Avenue. I'm sure you've noticed how divided people are. They've got very short fuses these days. Some are divided by political party, some are divided over vaccines, some are divided over mandates. The last thing we need to do is divide this nation by race. And I'm still upset over critical race theory. I do not want to see us going into another civil war, and if we keep this crap up, I'm afraid we might. And I had read an article in the paper, an op-ed piece, that said there really was no good explanation of what critical race theory is, so I don't know why we're teaching it if we don't know what it is. But I want to give you my definition. It's a woke indoctrination. And thank you for your outstanding columns I'm reading a letter I had, regarding dissemination of propaganda in America's public schools and universities. And the kids are going to get this soon enough. The ones that go on to college are going to get it. We don't need to be doing this K through 12 because it's going to come up sooner or later. Like many, I've been frustrated by the dumbing down of courses in the humanities and social sciences over the past few years. Obviously, the moral bankrupt woke agenda has spread its tentacles into far more than just academia. Its doctrinators are paid big bucks to infiltrate business organizations, media, sports, political parties in order to spread an anti-business, anti-American, and anti-religious ideology. The woke propaganda machine is in overdrive as it thrives on the chaos generated by critical race theory. The purpose of CRT is to balkanize our blessed nation along racial and socio-economic lines by utilizing the twisted Saul Alinsky playbook. CRT also discards the great principles of merit-based progress and personal responsibility. Moreover, the woke movement ought to be renamed the asleep at the switch movement, as its adherents are tone deaf regarding the aspirations of the American people. These speech thought police strive to silence any individual who opposes them or dares to question their regressive Marxist worldview. Common sense Americans must fight this pernicious movement with every fiber of their being by calling out each contradiction and incident of hypocrisy within the woke arsenal. The survival of our democratic republic hinges on the people's vigilance. I wouldn't be here tonight if I could get a guarantee that you were going to pull this out of the public school. And I mean, pull it out in every aspect, because I've been told it's in some of your alphabet soup things like clear and reach. If you were to take all of this out, they're going to get it soon enough when they go to college. You don't need to be doing this on a public school level. And I just think it's sad that we have to be here. If we could get your guarantee that you'd pull this stuff out, none of us would be here. It's that simple. But I don't like the division that I see happening in this country. People are very short-tempered, short-fused. And I think a lot of it's to do with indoctrination.
Ms. Nelson, thank you. That's a good question. Hang with us for just a second while these guys make some adjustments. Up next would be Gary Sigler. Mr. Sigler, as you make your way up, I understand you've got some documents you'll pass along to us as the board. And then if you don't mind, just doing a quick sound check so these gentlemen in the back of the room would be able to double check that. Thank you.
Can you hear me now? Does that sound any better? It's ringing pretty good in my ear.
You can, is it okay? It's all right? Okay. Mr. Sigler,
Okay.
It's all yours.
As educators, the job of teachers is to educate, not indoctrinate. Politics should not enter into the educational process, at least in my opinion. Reading, writing, and arithmetic should still be the backbone of what today's children are learning in our schools. Obviously, there's a lot more to it than that, but a basic core of learning should be in every classroom at every level. One has to be able to learn, read to learn from those who have gone before them. One has to be able to write to be able to express oneself. You have to know math so you can work to earn a living, so you cannot be taken advantage of. And history is a big part of that equation too. Critical race theory takes away from much of what I mentioned. It takes away the equal opportunity for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, which is what our country was founded upon. CRT purports equity, not equal opportunity. It reduces the drive for individualism. Individualism is one of the major reasons why the USA is as great as it is today. That's why people all over the world have chosen to immigrate here legally. People in previous times came here to pursue better opportunities to make a better life for themselves and their families. We used to welcome immigrants because it not only gave them better lives, but it gave all of us better lives because of the new ideas and creativity that came with them. Whether we were born here or immigrated here, everyone had equal opportunity. My, how times have changed. CRT takes away the incentives individualism offers. It promotes a guaranteed outcome. It concentrates or centralizes power, being the government, to equalize those outcomes. Returns on hard work and extra effort are mostly gone. Should we be teaching this type of thing in our schools? Should we be passing students along who have not put in the effort or made the grade? Should we be graduating students who cannot read, write, or do arithmetic? If they don't learn and we don't make sure they learn, are we really doing them any favors, or are we simply putting them into another form of slavery, doing whatever our government tells them to do simply for a livable wage or welfare? Back in 2001, when No Child Left Behind became a reality, that seems to be when we started to backslide. Now it's CRT taking us backwards. CRT in and of itself is racist. It assigns all of life's grievances by one race to another. It suggests that if you're white, you have a better chance to excel. That is not necessarily true. Effort, drive, and goals are much more important to attain outcomes. I'm not going to say that as a country we've never been racist, because I believe we have. We were making great strides towards overcoming this, but starting in about 2009, we had a big setback. That was the beginning of a huge reversal in that process. More recently, we were making strides in the right direction again, and then CRT came along. The wrong direction again. We do not want CRT, period. We do not want it in our schools. We do not want it in our workplaces. CRT is Marxism, pushing resentment, blame, guilt, fear, silence, and compliance. Does any of this sound familiar to you? Critical race theory is definitely taking us down the wrong path. Do we really want this in our schools? True Americans live and promote by values,
Mr.
not
Sigler.
skin color.
Mr. Sigler, that's
Thank
your
you.
time. Thanks. Next speaker is Jason Jacobs. Mr. Jacobs, welcome.
Welcome. Thank you. Well, once again, thank you for allowing me to speak, and thank you for serving on the school board. I'm only here tonight because the last time I was here, I heard an opponent of critical race theory state that she wanted to hear from local clergy. I am not clergy, but I am a person of faith. In the Old Testament, we read that Moses warned the Egyptians of the plagues God would impose upon them if they did not free the Israelites and let them return to their home. We further go on to read of their refusal to do so and the multitude of plagues that fell upon them. Some opposition to critical race theory have no problem reading or teaching about the misgivings of the Egyptians and their demise. However, they do have issues with us teaching about the mistreatment of certain groups by our own country, past and present. Maybe some do not tend to have a problem with learning about Old Testament critical race theory because we associate with the Israelites. However, for a country that enslaved people, took land from Native Americans, established Jim Crow laws, established laws against interracial marriage, segregated schools, we might want to change our perspective and ask, who are we actually in our story? Furthermore, at the last board meeting, I heard concerns that teaching equity and critical race theory sheds white children in a poor light, and teaching it may damage self-esteem and self-worth. Therefore, we should not teach certain historic events and examine current policies. If we were to eliminate teachings of the Bible because it did not paint us in a good picture and made us appear inferior, we would not have a Bible. The whole truth is that we are sinful, weak people that constantly fall short of the glory of God. Thankfully, He is gracious and merciful and provided us a way out of our peril if we accept the gift of Jesus Christ. But with this, we are called to self-reflect, examine our lives, repent from our sinful ways, and be better. Whether this self-examination is within ourselves or an examination of our policies and laws. It does not make us weaker to do this, it makes us better and stronger for it. Lastly, God honoring is not posting demeaning comments on social media about our school board. It is not about making threats to make lives miserable. It is not calling them your servants, as I heard at the last meeting. It is not asking for clergy to speak and the next sentence criticizing the way people place their hand during the Pledge of Allegiance. God honoring is respecting one another, speaking in love, following laws meant to protect, whether that be a fire code capacity or mandates to protect the vulnerable, such as masking and distancing. The Bible says this. All you have to do is open it up and read it. Thank you.
Mr. Jacobs, thank you. The next speaker would be Jamie Stanislav. Ms. Stanislav, welcome.
Thank you. My name is Jamie Stanislav, and I'm the mother of 3 boys who attend Washington School. Our family is transracial through adoption, and it's been extremely important for our family to understand the equity work that has taken place within the district. Seeing how the district is actively working to increase minority representation in leadership, teach empathy and equity, and educate students to think critically and compassionately was a main reason we decided to stay in Owatonna and raise our family here. I thank you as the school board for your commitment to the students of Owatonna and for the hard work it takes to make equitable decisions. So many of the concerns brought up in recent board meetings about equity and CRT are looking at the same narrative through 2 different lenses. We all care deeply about our students. We want them to learn from all perspectives. We know that limited and biased viewpoints are dangerous, and we want our students to know their value no matter what their background is. The beauty of teaching equity and critical thinking is that it teaches our kids to have these same conversations that we're having here tonight with each other in the classroom, learning how to do that in a respectful and kind way. As parents and community members, instead of debating and wasting the time of the school board, why don't we sit down and talk with the administrators and teachers? Let's hear about the equity training that the staff is receiving, research and review what's actually in the curriculum at our schools, and personally attend those diversity events that our schools are hosting. Let's listen to the students who are actually experiencing these conversations. I'm here tonight because I want to stand up and be counted among the people advocating for continued equity education and inclusion for every student in our community. Thank you.
Ms. Stanislav, thank you. Next card is Sue Robbins. Ms. Robbins, welcome.
My name is Sue Robbins. I'm here to talk about basically accountability for the school board. Just in case anyone needs a reminder about who the school board serves, the school board doesn't serve the federal government. They don't work for the state government nor the governor. They don't work for Superintendent Elstead. They work for the students. They work for we the voters. They work for we the taxpayers. They work for we the people. We want transparency and accountability, and we are not going away.
Ms. Robbins, thank you. Next card is Zach Radke. Mr. Radke, welcome.
Hi, guys. So first of all, thank you guys for moving the venue to this location. It really is appreciated. Also, thank you for serving on this position. I get that it can be pretty tough, especially when you got a lot of people coming at with different opinions and different ways to do things. And on that aspect, you know, us as parents and us as citizens of this community, it's kind of on us. You know, things have slipped. I agree with somebody that said this all started back probably in 2001 with No Child Left Behind. So really it's on us. We've let it slide until then. I also agree that there probably hasn't been a whole lot of transparency, but if we're not coming here asking and not coming here to be involved in these kinds of things, that's also on us. So that's not your guys' blame or fault. I have a really hard time with all this stuff. This is, to me, we're getting pushed a lot of propaganda. My speech last week, our last school board meeting, was about World War II. I love history, what's going on in this country. I see a lot of stuff that has a lot of similarities to what the Germans and the Nazis did to the Jewish people. A lot of propaganda push that goes along with mask mandates, that goes along with vaccine mandates. The science is not there to go along with these mandates. And I know that that's not your deal, but our kids wearing that is your guys' deal. And I do appreciate you guys for holding your ground so far and not making that mandated to kids and keeping that the parents' choice to, you know, to make their decision on whether or not to wear those masks. I do appreciate that. it's just sad. There's a lot of stuff going on in this country. It is a hot button. You know, what's a guy do? We really do need to come together, and I really hope we can fill this room, and maybe we, people on the opposite side of the aisle, I mean, maybe we can come together and come up with better solutions, because equity is not it. I mean, equity, the word itself, I mean, all you have to look at is that one picture of equity where you have 3 kids standing on blocks, but only one can see over the fence. I mean, equality is getting every kid the right size box so they can see over the fence. I mean, it's just, equality and equity are 2 totally different things. And equity is trying to make everybody on the same playing field. I mean, but I really don't care as much about the critical race theory. I'm here about the masks. I really don't want our kids wearing masks. And Pfizer, I seen, made vaccines. They're trying to make it FDA approved for 5 to 11-year-olds. I don't know what that means for schools and trying to get involved with making vaccines mandated on kids. I know that schools won't make it, but I don't know where that'll lead. And I mean, this stuff is not okay. I mean, we're the experiment on this vaccine. And I know people feel strongly on it, but there was no experiments done. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Radke. Our next card tonight is from Nicole Barfneck. Ms. Barfneck, welcome.
Hi, thank you. Hello, my name is Nicole, and I'm not from Owatonna originally. I'm here today to share a little of my personal story with you and talk about my concerns as a parent of a student who attends your school district. I was born at Hennepin County Medical Center in an impoverished white family and raised in a neighborhood where you don't want to be caught with your windows down or your doors unlocked. I walked through metal detectors to receive my state-approved education, and I walked the streets of North Minneapolis to learn survival. Anyone from a neighborhood like that can tell you survival is just as key as your multiplication division. Does anyone here know why those neighborhoods are so dangerous? It's the mentality. You see, where I come from, you're either down or you're a rat, or even worse, you're a cop. It's them versus us. It's why police brutality is so high, and don't be fooled by media. Every single one of us have had run-ins and beatings from police, myself included. Thugs versus police is not the only example I have for you today of this toxic mentality. We see it every day. We are all guilty of it. Democrat versus Republican, white versus black, religion versus science, the list truly goes on. Which brings me to the issue I'd like to discuss today, and that is equity versus equality. I believe the example given at another school board meeting explained it as giving a blind child Braille to level the playing field for seeing children. This is actually an excellent example of equality. So let me give you a better example of equity. Does anyone remember doing group projects in school? Everyone got grouped together and we all had to research and present to the class, but from my experience, there was always that one kid who did nothing to contribute to the group yet received the same grade as everyone else. This is equity. Equity is the lack of accountability for yourself. Without accountability, we are crippling our children and prohibiting them from becoming their most resourced selves. We are allowing them to blame their peers for their shortcomings. Do you think I've made it this far in my life because I was allowed to blame other people for the life I was given? Absolutely not. I worked multiple jobs, I saved and scraped, and sometimes I had a meal to show for it, and sometimes I didn't. Me and a majority of my friends who left that life behind us kept our nose to the grindstone, and we worked hard. We held ourselves accountable for the direction our life was going, and we never once took from another because we felt it was owed to us. Your job as high school educators is to prepare our children for their futures as adults. So let me leave you with this last question. How well do you think you have done your job at the end of the day when you have taught our children that the world owes them something?
Thank you. Our next card tonight is from Deb Groutman. Ms. Groutman, welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon. This has kind of been done to death tonight, but I had prepared my speech, and it's on the critical race theory as well. And I didn't know anything really about this until I started coming, and so I did a lot of my own research. And I'd just like you to know that from my research, I found it to be a progressive movement that's funded and supported by our government. And other words for the progressive include liberalism, being politically correct, and democratic socialism. These are doctrines that lead to Marxism, Nazism, and communism. They promote fear and division among groups, any groups. These theories have been taught for some time at the college level. They promote gender and racial confusion. Young people emerge with no rules, no work ethic, and no Christian values. They promote violence and are anti-police. They plan to teach these theories to younger students to go after the next generation. One of the basic goals of this movement is to eliminate Christian beliefs and ultimately Christians. Then they will promote obedience to government control. This is completely against our Constitution. Our beginning fathers were all Christian men who used the Bible to write their agreement. The separation of church and state was meant to keep government out of our churches, not the churches out of government. Christians are not haters, white supremacists, racists, or homophobes. The book of Galatians gives us an example. Those with the spirit of Jesus are humble and deeply touched by others' suffering. They are gentle and kind. They long for goodness in themselves and others. They are merciful to those who struggle and fail. They are peaceful and leave a legacy of peace. They are kind to those who mistreat them, returning good for evil. They are single-minded in their love for Jesus. I am a Christian, and I want our history and our values to return to what was intended by our Constitution. All people are created equal. Please do not teach otherwise. Thank you.
Ms. Groutman, thank you. Next speaker tonight is Mike Peterson. Mr. Peterson, welcome.
Hi there. Thank you, and thank you everybody for being here tonight, out in the audience and up here. I was asked by a few people to comment on mandatory masks. You guys all received my letter a couple months ago. And it's really that mandatory part that I'm emphasizing. I have no issue with masks. I don't think the school board should be involved in testing people for BMI or for vitamin D serum level testing to look for viral spread, because those are also important factors. I'm just not big into the mandate part of it. I actually have a short video. One of my issues also, as I'm sure it's everybody else's issue, is all of the epic amount of experts we have that comment on these things. This is a fellow named Dr. Osterholm, who is the right-hand man actually of Governor Walz. He also sits on Mr. Biden's panel for the national policy, and this is his quote on CNN about masks.
The face cloth coverings that people wear are not very effective in reducing any of the virus movement in or out. Either you're breathing out or you're breathing in. And in fact, if you're in the upper Midwest right now, anybody who's wearing their face cloth covering can tell you they can smell all the smoke that we're still getting.
And the reason he makes that smoke comment is there's a lot of study on the micron size of the virus and the smoke. So again, that's Dr. Osterholm, who's probably top of the mark. He doesn't, not quite as famous as Dr. Fauci, talking about the questionable nature of that. And one of the downsides, or one of the many downsides, as I think I put in the letter if you guys read it, there hasn't been any study at all about the diaphragm and the long-term effect of shallow breathing. The concept would be, say, put a kimono on someone at 5 years old and have them walk like that. How would their muscles develop? I would argue your diaphragm is probably your most important muscle in your body, and limiting that breathing over long periods of time, especially in youth, has never been studied, and I'm very concerned about that long term and the people that are doing that for long periods of time. There have also been a number of studies. I don't, quite frankly, know how they do this, but they talk about, we find that children born during the pandemic have significantly reduced verbal, motor, and overall cognitive performance. And one of the pictures you'll see circulating is the picture of smiling, frowning, happy, sad, and then what happens when you have a mask, especially on the younger kids. And again, this doesn't have anything to do with being anti-mask. It has to do with anti-mandating that action. Again, people have talked about being a free country, and there are multiple things that limit both viral spread and then what's called viral load, your ability to pass that on. And it's not just masks. So isolating that kind of, in my opinion, teaches a bad rule to a kid who sleeps 3 hours a day, doesn't get the right food, has a lot of things that his or her immune system is down, and it prioritizes the mask over in my opinion, much more important behaviors. So I just wanted to make that comment. A lot of that's in the letter. And there's, yeah, that's good. Thank you very much for your time.
Mr. Peterson, thank you. Our next card is from Chris Bussey. Ms. Bussey, welcome.
Thank you. First of all, I just want to thank the school board for everything you do for our community. I know that each and every one of you care deeply about our children, about our community, about what's right, and I know that you have the very best intentions for us all, and I truly appreciate that. Just a couple of questions. I think a lot of this discussion about critical race theory is there's a lot of confusion, there's a lot of multiple definitions of what that is. My understanding is it all started with that one elective course that was offered that is not being offered again. Is that not correct? Right? And then your current curriculum for social studies is remaining the same as it has been 4 years? Is that not true?
This is actually your opportunity to tell us.
Okay, well, that's
how
my
you feel.
understanding, is that you are not proposing to change it. It's the current curriculum that we've had for a number of years. And so that's all I guess I wanted to say, other than thank you.
Ms. Bussey, thank you. Our next card is from Roger Wasek. Mr. Wasek, welcome.
Good evening. July 27th, 2021 Minneapolis Star Tribune article, State Gets Electrical Vehicles Rolling, reminded me of a question from my cousin Sunday at Little Missile Summer Festival. Are we going to have enough electricity for electric cars? My response was yes, we can generate electricity in many ways, and you can even have a solar-powered car. I steered the conversation down a different path with a more pertinent question. Are we going to have enough gas to power our children's cars? Oil is a non-renewable finite resource. It has been almost 20 years when I read a lot about the topic called peak oil. I'm not going to comment on the politics of electric vehicles, but we'll close with 4 questions for our local government officials. Eden Prairie Police Department got its first Tesla squad car last week, so what about Owatonna and or Steele County? And I forgot, what about the school district cars? When are we going to get smart enough to get an electric SMART bus, or at least a plug-in hybrid smart bus? Ditto with our school buses. Is our new public works building LEED certified? Is our new high school building LEED certified? Can renovations to the old high school building be LEED certified? Can the city administration building with renovations be LEED certified? Has anyone checked on small solar or small wind for any of our county, city, or school district facilities? For those that say there's no money for small solar or small wind, I ask you to consider using some of the money spent satisfying the turf grass lawn obsession for small wind or solar. LEED building certification is a sustainable architectural movement started in 1989. Here we are 32 years later, and I bet most people don't even know what LEED building certification is. Since we teach by example, I suggest we stop arguing about curriculum, building costs, and the local economy and start with educating ourselves about energy, starting with LEED certification. With that said, the city council, the county board, and the school board can hold the feet to the fire of our city administrator, our county administrator, and our school district administrator. The pun intended is that in that statement probably isn't understood by most people unless you've read the book Reinventing Fire, Bold Business Solutions for the New Energy Era by Amory Lovins and the Rocky Mountain Institute that explores converting the United States to almost total reliance on renewable energy sources, such as solar energy and wind power. Lovins says that renewable energy is already cheaper than fossil fuels, and his analysis predicts further reductions in renewable energy prices. Conservation Minnesota Fall 2021 newsletter.
Mr. Wasek, that's your time.
This is free money.
Thank
I'll
you
just
for
pass it on to
thank you for coming. Appreciate your thoughts. Our next card is April St. Martin. Ms. St. Martin, welcome.
Hello, thank you. First of all, I would also like to thank you for changing the venue. I do appreciate that in many ways. And what I want to do before I even start to go over anything is I want to give God all the glory, and I want to thank him for the opportunity to come and have the freedom for everybody here to be able to give both sides and give you their opinions on what's going on. Something I'd like to read. Parents, are equality and equity the same? No. Equality and equity are not the same when applied to curriculum. Equality is about equal treatment, while equity is about equal outcomes. We believe that all children in public schools should experience equality, which treats everyone the same, giving all students access to the same opportunities, regardless of circumstance, skin color, economic condition, gender, disability, age, mental emotional status, or religious background. Equality is something every person, child, and adult deserves in the United States of America lifelong. We all know that equity is an achievement measurement, racial equity being just one tool. To achieve equity, racial or other, policies and procedures may result in unequal distribution of resources. This equal outcome and goal demands each person's needs and circumstances be favored into the equation, but it is unrealistic to expect equal outcomes for all students. Teaching from an equal outcome basis goes against human nature, since all children are unique and born for very specific purposes. We desire that all students to achieve their highest levels and potential comprehension skills so that they are prepared for careers following high school graduation. Critical theory of any type that fuels teaching ideologies toward equal outcomes is not the new answer. Let's better define equal treatment and start from there. I would challenge anybody who has already said that they think this is a waste of time. This is never a waste of time to get our opinions out there and get things, the dialogue rolling. So that's what we would like to see more of. So if you agree with us, please consider how you can get involved, and God bless you as we together pursue happiness for all Americans. One question that I had regarding somebody who just spoke, she said there was equity training that was done in the school systems. I'd like to learn a little bit more about that. And maybe we can work together to find a solution on how we can come together better as a community. This country, the state, the school district, me, myself personally, I am not perfect. But when I pledge allegiance to the flag, I pledge allegiance to the ideals that America stands for, and equity is not it. Thank you.
Ms. St. Martin, thank you. Our last card tonight is from Jeffrey Doyon. And Mr. Doyon, if I mispronounced that.
No, you did. You did it right.
Thanks.
Thank you, school board, for hearing us all tonight. I mean, we honor everything that goes around here. I want to start off with the origins of critical race theory. Critical race, CRT originated in the 1970s. The legal studies that sought to identify and rectify legal inequities. In the 1970s and 80s, a group of lawyers, activists, and legal scholars recognized they needed a new framework to combat racism and oppression in America. They blended concepts from critical legal studies and radical feminism with the influence of the Black Power and Chicano movements of the time, and critical race theory was born. At first, it was mainly referenced in legal scholarships, but now it is used across many different fields and disciplines. Is critical race theory dangerous? Critical race theory presupposes that racism is everywhere and all the time. Therefore, it has a potential of being misused, especially since it has Marxist leanings. It divides people into the oppressor and the oppressed based on skin color and aims at having the government force societal changes for the greater good. It sees people as groups, not individuals. It intends to view everything in terms of its own criteria and judging all areas of society based on critical race theory. Therefore, white people are guilty of racism because they are white. This, of course, reverse racism. It sees free societies as bad because such freedom only supports further racism, and it keeps the racist problem alive and actually contributes to the thing it's supposed to prevent. Let me list them here. Racism is everywhere all the time. CRT presupposes that white people are inherently racist. It views people as groups, not individuals. A free society only supports the racist paradigm. Encourages the racism to purports to prevent. Are all white people racist? Critical race theory implies they are. But how can that assertion be validated? When developing methods for discovering something, we often find exactly what we look for. If a social scientist seeks to uncover racism within a person or group or people, white people, it is possible to gear a study to find it or even create false positives. Because that is what he or she is looking for, after all, critical race theory CRT is viewed that the law and legal institutions are inherently racist and that race itself, instead of being biologically grounded and natural, it is socially concepted that it is used by white people to further their economic and political interests at the expense of people of color.
Mr. Doyen, that's your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Actually, our cutoff time was when we started the meeting.
If I may, just pass around my letter to the editor so everybody can have it.
If you'd like to leave that with Sarah down here at the end, that would be fine. Ladies and gentlemen, that draws to a close the public forum. I do want to take this opportunity to thank all of you here in the room for being very respectful of all of the perspectives that you heard here tonight. It's very much appreciated. Thank you. We're going to move on. Item 6 tonight, which is general information. Item 6A would be the enrollment report. Any questions, board members, on what you saw as part of the enrollment report? Hearing none, we're going to move on. I'm going to ask Eric to speak on item B. There's a City of Owatonna public hearing. This regards TIF funding, and that does, in fact, impact us. I'll let Eric do a quick explanation there.
Coming up on Tuesday, October 18th, they'll be going over a potential TIF vote for the building downtown on 224 North Cedar, the old Bubba's Bar building. It has been sitting banquet, and I know the roof, it's a mess. So they got somebody interested into it that they're actually looking at trying to repurpose the building and bring it back, and future taxing then for the school district, city, and county.
So any of you that have questions regarding that TIF funding, if you'd like to, Eric would be happy to pass that along to you. Nothing, no action that's required on that. We will move on. Item 7 tonight, which is board forum. Jolene, I'm going to start down here with you. Anything
Okay.
for board forum tonight?
Yes, policy meeting last week. Buckle up, folks. So what I did was I just recapped some of the policies that we reviewed. Minor adjustments, nothing major, but I'm going to go through each one, and so stop me if you have questions. If I can't answer it, Chris is here to help, and Jeff is here to help. Lori and I were at that meeting, so policy, let's see here, hang on. Okay, policy 102, equal educational opportunity, that was just a few grammatical changes, as well as language that is now student-focused, such as prior to the minor changes, it was disabled students, now it's students with disabilities. So minor things such as that, and stop me, so I'm gonna go through these. So 104 is school district philosophy. Minor changes that resulted from our work session 2 weeks ago. It went from strategic plan to the strategic roadmap to approve the roadmap from last month. Item number 213 realigns, again, as a result of the work session 2 weeks ago, it realigns our role as far as a board with regard to governance versus committees. 406 is cleaning up public versus private personal data. I should be reading these, I'm sorry. 413 is harassment and violence. That's just statutory law updates. The language, again, aligns with some of the state statutes that were updated as well. 501 is a school weapons policy. Language is aligned again with state statutes. It adds clarity on referrals to the law enforcement use and some provisions that fall under that as well. 503, student attendance, that adds new language for parents. So if you're pulling your kids out for religious observation or religious holiday, you just have to notify the school. 507, corporal punishment, adds additional references in the bottom of the cross section. So the policy itself stayed the same. Reference points to laws that have been passed were added at the bottom. 515, the protection and privacy of pupil records, that's grammatical cleanup, and it's aligned with FERPA, which stands for Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act. 524, electronic technologies. Now that we're one-to-one, I think this policy is just going to be evolving because we have to add language to try to keep up with the ever-changing social media world, and it also puts definitions in as far as when the devices that schools give to kids and families are used only for school-related purposes. 534, the unpaid meal charges, that language has completely been rewritten because students don't have to pay right now for their school lunches, and so we don't need a policy for collections because between the law change and our angel fund in our community, we essentially have a zero balance for our school meals, which is awesome. New policy for review. Daniela 2 weeks ago asked, and she shall receive, about the student representative. So this policy just highlights the requirements of students that can apply for the position and calls out students have to be in good standing and at the high school, as well as students from the Alternative Learning Center are encouraged to apply and participate as well. And it also talks about how we'll be having 2 student reps. We initially wanted to have 2, but then because of COVID, we didn't get to have a second one last year, and so they'll be a year apart. So there'll be consistency ongoing. When one graduates, there's another one that's kind of been caught up to speed. And then last but not least, policy 103, the complaints regarding students, employees, parents, or other persons. There's no changes, but state statutes, we have to review it every year. So that was really fast. Does anybody have any questions? No? Okay. That's what I had. Thank you.
Deborah, anything for board forum?
I did take the first part of phase 4 in the MSBA classes last Thursday, and we'll have the second one this Thursday. It's got a lot of good information, and it's been well presented.
I have nothing for board forum. Tim?
Aside from thanking the policy committee members, because some of those privacy policies are long. The curriculum advisory committee met about 10-12 days ago for our organizational meeting that meets every month during the school year, and it was basically the organizational meeting, but there are places on that group for parents or non-parent community members as well. If people are interested in that, they could contact, I think, Michelle to throw their hat in the ring.
I have nothing for this evening.
Okay. Nikki?
So I have an MSBA meeting this coming Sunday. We are going to be reviewing resolutions that have been submitted by the MSBA membership. So there still is time for school districts to send us resolutions. The deadline is the 30th, so I don't know if I've not heard of us having any, but other areas, other school districts are sending resolution requests. MSBA just had a webinar on demographics. I'm sure it's very fascinating, and I encourage all of you to go online and see the video that's there.
Have you watched it?
I have not.
Okay.
But I did get a summary,
Yeah,
so that
okay.
that part was good. Minnesota is apparently growing slightly above what the national average is. The national average growth is 7.4%, and Minnesota is at 7.6%.
Wow. Cool.
So we are slightly above that. The executive director of MSBA met with Commissioner Mueller to discuss shortages that are being experienced by districts, in particular bus drivers, paras, and teachers. They wanted to make sure that Commissioner Mueller was aware of that this is going around everywhere. Some districts are also experiencing supply chain problems for breakfast and lunch. So apparently that is now, some school districts are now not able to be in compliance with some of the mandates, so they are requesting exemptions. And MSBA has a new website that just launched, so I encourage you all to go look. It's much more streamlined than it used to be. That's all I have.
Thank you. Danielle?
At the high school, homecoming week is coming up in just 2 weeks. There's going to be a lot of fun activities, as well as a parade, football game, and the game. But other than that, there's not much. There's a National Honor Society induction next school board meeting, so I won't be here. I have to kind of run the show for that. But other than that, there's nothing else.
Good for you. Thanks for representing. That takes care of board forum. Jolene gave us a nice update on the policies, the first reading for the policies. Anything else you feel like needs to be added to that?
I don't think so.
That was a pretty good summary.
No, thanks.
Any questions for Mr. Elstad with regard to the administrative report or members of the team that are here? Hearing none, we'll move
If I
on.
could, Mr. Chair, just to give a brief COVID update, because I
thank
know
you.
that
That's a good
something
spot.
that people ask me questions about daily. As of right before I left here, I computed our COVID percentage, that is the percentage of students or staff that have tested positive for COVID. Our district currently stands at 0.53%. The numbers have dropped since last week, which is great news. And we met with Steele County Public Health this morning, or this afternoon, excuse me, and we are continuing moving forward with masks that are recommended in the building but not required.
Thank you.
Good. Thank you. Any questions? Hearing none, we're going to move on to item 8, which is our consent agenda. Again, the quick reminder, we would be approving the minutes from August 30 as well as September 13. Disbursement and personnel reports. Anybody have a reason to believe we should pull anything out? Hearing none, we'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Eric, this is a roll call vote.
Yep. Jolene?
Aye.
Deborah?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Tim?
Aye.
Nikki?
Aye.
And I myself is an aye. 6-0 pass.
Motion carries. Thank you very much. We're going to move on to item 9 with some action that we need to take tonight with regard to several items. We'll invite Amanda Hallman up with the preliminary tax levy certification.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you. I'm here once again to ask you to take action tonight to certify our preliminary levy for the 22-23 school year. These taxes will be collected during the calendar year of 2022. As you'll see from the attachment in your board packet, we are expecting our levy to decrease this year by approximately 1.46%. This compares to a 1.54% increase from last year. The state average for school district property tax levies across the state is increasing by about 4.5%, so we are well below that. The largest portion of our levy, about 64% of it, comes from the great community support that we have through our bond and operating levies. And then if you take a look at the latest MDE report, $150,000 residential property owner in Owatonna pays about $823 annually in property taxes, whereas the Big 9 average is about $849 for that same property, and the state average is about $1,063 for that same property. So we are below that as well. So tonight we are actually asking you to certify that preliminary levy. There aren't amounts yet, as we'll continue to do revisions through December, and then I'll come back and we'll do the truth and taxation presentation in December to finalize all the numbers. So that's what that is for tonight. Any questions? All right.
No
Thank you
questions.
very much.
Thanks, Amanda.
So with that, I will move that the board certify a preliminary levy in the maximum amount provided by law.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. One last time, any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor with an aye? Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. Item B, I'm going to turn things over to Mr. Elstad. There's a conversation tonight about the existing Owatonna High School and a task force to offer up some determinations as to the future of this building.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Tonight you're being asked to consider directing me to put a citizens task force together to determine the future use of this facility that we're in currently. The task force is being convened to examine the future of our existing high school facility, which will no longer be used for 9-12 instruction once the new building is opened in 2023. As a part of our November 2019 bond referendum, the community voted to approve question number 2, which allocated funds for the conversion of portions of the building for district uses. As a part of this funding request, the district is committed to engaging the community about the future of the facility, and this existing OHS Citizens Task Force is a part of that process. In your packet, you received a timeline of overall projected timeline. The timeline for this task force would begin their work, or we would actually start accepting applications here in October. The work would be conducted primarily in November and December, perhaps leaking into January. And then we would look at the group itself finalizing a project scope and potential partnerships, and make a presentation and recommendation to the school board for their consideration in January, perhaps into February. The nice thing is we have a little time with this, so we are leaving some of those timelines rather open right now. The design of this, whatever is decided by the task force, would begin somewhere in February through April in schematic design. May through August would be design development. September through November of next year, construction documents would be created, and then we would go out for bid in December of 2022. Construction, of course, would begin. We may be able to do some pre-construction parts of the building, but we still have students here till June. And so if it's permitting to do that, we would certainly start where we can. The large construction would begin June of 2023 and continue through August of 24, with substantial completion projected to be August 2024. If you remember, question number 2 actually allocated $8 million, but just for clarity, question 1, which passed for $112 million, also allocated $3 million within that question should question 1 have only passed. The $3 million was to be used for potential demolition of the site. So we have $8 million from question 2 and an additional $3 million from question 1 that could have been used for demolition. So a total package of $11 million for the potential repurposing of this building. And so we're also going to be seeking any potential partnerships perhaps. $11 million does not go very far when it comes to buildings, especially if you're looking at refurbishing buildings, particularly buildings that are 100 years old. And so in saying that, we'll be looking, and that group will be exploring potential partnerships. We do have some suggested uses by the district, and perhaps that would include sale of some of our current properties to reduce our footprint in the city of Owatonna. We would be looking for, again, a group of probably 20 to 30 members with a wide variety of background, skills, and perspectives to best represent a broad cross-section of our community. School district administration will be available for the task force as resources, but will not be participants. We will be pushing out dates and materials on our school district website, as well as communicating with the applicants that are chosen for the task force. We anticipate that meetings will occur about every 2 weeks during the time in the evening to accommodate people's work schedules, and that the task force meetings will be facilitated by Wold architects and engineers. We are going to begin the application process starting October 1st, which is this Friday. We'll be using a similar application that we use for the new high school task force, just reworking some of the verbiage within that to accommodate this specific task force. We'll be reviewing those applications to identify task force members by October 15th and making selections so we can begin our work in early November. Again, I'm asking for you to consider that task force directing the superintendent to facilitate in forming that citizens task force.
Questions? Can you offer some clarity? In the packet or in the information that was made available, there would be, there's like 5 bullet points in there that talk about things like the C Plaza and the Ag Building. And are those good examples of serious considerations? Are they hard and fast? If the task force comes up with something that would be contrary to that, does the task force recommendation prevail over what we see with these 5 bullet points?
These will be presented as potential ideas for the
Gotcha.
task force
All
to
right.
consider. And again, it includes repurposing some of the parts of the building that are in the best condition to alleviate potential costing. And also looking at currently our maintenance shop is in disrepair. And looking at our Ag Building, it might be a great spot to relocate district maintenance shops. Again, our goal would be shrinking some of our footprint across the district so that we can repurpose facilities and be more centrally located.
Any other questions?
I have one. So how will the selection process work for selecting the 20 to 30 members?
What we're looking for, again, based upon what you're being asked to consider as kind of a wide variety of experiences, maybe even age groupings, to know that there will be, so we have some that may be looking at what would the potential future use versus maybe what it's been used for, and maybe other potential uses moving forward. We don't have a blueprint right now, so we're asking the task force to really help us with that. But again, we're trying to find varied experiences and not only lived experience within Owatonna, but also experiences perhaps in vocational interests and things like that that kind of give us a great parents. We do look to include a couple of students that are interested, have already expressed interest actually to me, and will be applying moving forward. So.
So one final question. So I know we were very fortunate when we were looking at the school that we were able to tour other schools that had been recently built to get some ideas. Are there any schools that have been repurposed that we would have that same opportunity for the task force to visit?
There are, and we will lean on Wold Architects to help us identify projects that they or others that they know of have been interested in maybe converting school buildings into. I know one in particular that I'm aware of is Eden Prairie. Did some refurbishing of I think it was a middle school or elementary building into a district office location. So again, I think we'll have opportunities, and perhaps that task force will even have some individuals that would tour other places to see what's been done.
Perfect, thank you.
I have a question. Are we married to Wold Architecture, or can we get bids from other companies?
So when we contracted with Wold, the part of that bid or the contract for Wold was to design the new high school and to help us repurpose this facility.
Okay. We are married to them then.
Well, for this particular project, we are. Any future projects, just like we would go out and interview various architectural groups, as we did for this particular project.
Okay.
Any other questions? Do one of you happen to have the motion queued up?
Got it. I move that the board authorize Superintendent Jeff Elstad to form an existing Owatonna High School Citizens Task Force to review ideas and potential partnerships in order to make a recommendation to the school board about the renovation of the existing high school, including areas to be remodeled and areas to potentially demolish.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor with an aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Item C tonight, gifts to the district. Mr. Elstad.
Yeah, as you can see, we have a number of gifts again. There's some gifts coming in yet to support our homecoming festivities from some of our local businesses. We did receive $500 from RV Repair and Renovation to Wilson Elementary for various student needs, as well as we also received some in-kind Post-it notes, tape, and other school supplies from 3M as a part of their give back to schools. So those are the gifts you're being asked to consider for approval tonight.
One of you be kind enough to introduce the motion for this, please?
I move that the board approve the resolution for acceptance of gifts as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Eric, it's a roll call vote.
Yep. Jolene?
Aye.
Deborah?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Tim?
Aye.
Nikki?
Aye.
And I myself is an aye. 6-0 pass.
Motion carries. Thank you. Tonight, item 10 on our agenda is closed session. And so here at 6:35 and in this small group forum, I move that the meeting be closed as permitted by Minnesota Statute 13D.03 to consider strategy for labor negotiations.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor with an aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. We'll take just a second. Now at 7:13, here in the small group forum, I will move that we reopen the open session.
Second.
So you've motioned, and Eric did, once again seconded. All in favor with an aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. And item 11 tonight is a motion to adjourn. I move that we adjourn our meeting.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor with an aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Good meeting tonight, folks. Thank you.
It's like, I think I'm done.